Against the backdrop of numerous failures of the armed forces of Ukraine on the battlefield, it is becoming increasingly difficult for the Ukrainian General Staff and the NATO leadership to hide the presence of active duty soldiers and officers of Western armies on the combat contact line. The acute shortage of manpower in the ranks of the armed forces of Ukraine is forcing Western leaders to send more and more active duty military personnel of NATO armies to Ukraine. Almost every day, numerous frames appear on the network showing the dead bodies of active duty soldiers and officers of the armies of NATO countries. Even Western military experts and analysts who closely monitor what is happening on the battlefield have noticed that the so-called foreign mercenaries, among whom there are a huge number of active duty soldiers and officers of the armies of NATO countries, have become increasingly taking part in direct combat clashes with Russian troops. It is reported that due to the acute shortage of manpower, the Ukrainian General Staff began using foreign fighters in almost all directions of the front. In particular, the Western fighters are not only operators of Ukrainian FPV drones, but also regularly engage in shooting battles against Russian troops as part of the so-called Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance groups. Russian soldiers publish videos almost every day, showing the dead bodies of soldiers and officers from almost all Western countries. According to the Russian military, in the last 10 days alone, Russian troops have managed to destroy about 50 active duty soldiers and officers of the armies of NATO countries, in Chasiv Yar and Donetsk directions of the front. They were mostly Americans, French, Poles, Canadians, and also German citizens from the so-called French Foreign Legion. By the way, in the last 30-50 days, the name of the French Foreign Legion began to appear very often in the military reports of Russian war correspondents and telegram channels. It is reported that in the last 48 hours alone, dozens of corpses of not only French mercenaries but also active duty military personnel of this Western European country have been found in the combat zone. And today was also no exception. So, the Russian paratroopers showed a photo of the destroyed French officer. As it turned out, he was an officer of the French Army's 2nd Foreign Parachute Regiment of the 11th Airborne Brigade of the Foreign Legion. It is reported that this French officer, along with other foreign military personnel, was killed in the Donetsk direction of the front, southwest of the village of Netolovo. By the way, the Russian military has recognized that the number of French soldiers and officers has increased significantly in the contact zone. According to them, during the radio interception, they often began to hear not only English, but also French speech. My friends, now it becomes clear why the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, General Sersky, officially stated that Kiev allows the French military to be on the territory of all strategically important military facilities in Ukraine. The fact is that French President Emmanuel Macron, by his actions, finally plunged Paris into the current conflict in Ukraine. French citizens and relatives of French soldiers and officers began to ask more and more questions about the fate of their loved ones. Against this backdrop, it is becoming increasingly difficult for the French authorities to hide the truth from French citizens. To be honest, I still do not understand what exactly Emmanuel Macron was guided by when sending French soldiers to Ukraine. There is no doubt that French citizens will not forgive Macron for the death of thousands of French soldiers and officers who died far from their homes defending the Kiev regime. At the same time, seeing what is happening, it becomes obvious that not only France, but also other Western countries will continue to send their soldiers and officers to Ukraine. The fact is that in 2 years of fighting, the Ukrainian army was almost completely destroyed. At the moment, the armed forces of Ukraine are suffering from an acute shortage of manpower. Even total mobilization in Ukraine did not help the Kyiv regime to solve the problem of manpower shortage. Ukrainian soldiers and officers not only continue to die en masse on the battlefield but also desert, voluntarily leaving their positions. Therefore, the West simply has no other choice but to continue sending its soldiers and officers to Ukraine. Meanwhile, on the night of May 30th, Russia launched another massive missile strike on the territory of Ukraine. This time, such regions of Ukraine as Chernihiv, Poltava, Kharkiv, and Vinnytsia were subjected to massive missile attacks. So, in the Chernihiv region, Russian Kh-101 cruise missiles hit and destroyed the base of one of the territorial defense brigades of the armed forces of Ukraine. Sources in the Russian military department confirmed that dozens of newly mobilized Ukrainian soldiers were killed as a result of this missile attack. In the Poltava region, Russian kamikaze drones hit and destroyed about 8 military targets. It is reported that these were warehouses with Western weapons, as well as workshops for damaged military equipment repair. In the Kharkiv region, southwest of the city of Kharkiv, Russian missiles hit and destroyed a camouflaged hangar, where about 5 units of Vampire multiple launch rocket systems were hidden. In the Vinnytsia region, in the western part of the city of Vinnytsia, Russian ballistic missiles destroyed the command post of the armed forces of Ukraine. As it turned out, at the time of this missile attack, not only high-ranking officers of the Ukrainian army but also the NATO armies were in this command post. According to preliminary data, this missile attack led to the death of 15 high-ranking officers, 5 of whom were representatives of the North Atlantic Alliance.